In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Cor Mariae Immaculatum.
Ora pro nobis.
Sancte Celestine.
Ora pro nobis.
Sancte Domatia.
Ora pro
In
nobis.
nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. We continue the study on the liturgical revolution. Remember, the revolution was extremely clever with Vatican II, because it wasn't just doctrinal revolution, although that's the most important. That's the heart of the engine. And Archbishop Lefebvre fought mainly on that level, doctrine, which is really the level that matters. But the revolution was smart because they not only attacked doctrine, and you are automatically, when you change doctrine, you affect morals, because how you think affects how you
Act.
and doctrine pertains to how you
No, you think.
how you think. Morals pertains to how you.
Act.
So if you change the doctrine, you change the
Moral.
morals. You change how you think, you change how you.
Act.
But there's a third dimension of the revolution through the back door that nobody expected, and that was the liturgical revolution. Nobody expected this. And that's why some think that when Pope Pius XII read the third secret of Fatima, out of his mouth came the reference to the liturgy. He said something upon the, if anyone remembers exact words, something about the altering of the liturgy. Altering of the liturgy is the words, changing it, which he's partly responsible for. But this revolution is what really did probably the most damage, and nobody expected it.
I don't remember the whole thing, Father, but I do remember that Pius XII did say, there are some who surround me who endeavor to change even the liturgy.
Yeah, and he does mention it in Mediator Dei. The modernists who really want to bring in the table instead of the altar, communion in the hand, drinking of the chalice, bring in white vestments in place of the black. So he condemns all that, but they had to start somewhere, and it was the crowbar nose, the crowbar into the crack was what? What was the camel's nose in the tent for the revolutionaries at the liturgical level?
Putting St. Joseph's name in the cat.
Oh, even long before that.
I was going to say the changes in Holy Week.
Changing Holy Week.
Even before that, what was their buzzword?
Oh,
no,
no,
active participation.
participation.
Yeah, active participation. Active participation. And I guess I could say I have a confession to make. I once was asked, I filled in for a priest in a parish, big parish in Long Island, and he wanted me to give a sermon to encourage the people to sing in the Mass, active participation. So, being a young priest, and that's the position of the SSPX, it's totally behind all this. I gave a sermon encouraging, people to sing, and Pius X wants it because he mentions active participation, and I didn't know that was a mistranslation from Latin to Italian. So here I am giving a sermon on encouraging active participation. And I didn't think twice about it because that was truly the SSPX position. And at that time, Archbishop Lefebvre just died 2 or 3 years before. So, and he grew up totally praising active participation himself, because in France it was a big deal. But after Mass, there was a very upset old man. He said, "That's what we heard when they brought in the Novus Ordo." And it made me think. It made me think twice. You know, that is what they did to bring in the Novus Ordo. You have to participate. You have to clap and sing and shake hands. And if you don't, you're not praying. So I kind of pity that old man now. He's probably dead now. But actually, when I look back, he was right. He was right. And he lived through the revolution. I didn't. He knew the old Mass before. He was much older than me. And he was very upset. He was angry. Because he's, in his eyes, oh, you're pushing the Novus Ordo on us again. Active participation. Dialogue Mass. And everybody singing.
Because he probably thought that, like he probably saw back in his day, that was, like he saw it, that was their foot in the door, was
That's
preaching that.
That's what they were always pushing. So he was right. And now that, here I am, 33 years a priest, and I'm still learning. And I didn't know. So I hope God will have mercy on me in purgatory for pushing that. But all the priests did. They all encouraged that because it was, it was what Pius XII wants. And Archbishop Lefebvre had a great admiration for Pius XII. And all traditional priests do, because he was the last traditional pope. But again, in hindsight, we're learning a lot more. And these kind of books are coming out now that show, wait a minute, Pius XII is responsible for the liturgical revolution just as much as Paul VI. Maybe not as radical, but for goodness sake, he laid the foundations. He assigned the criminals who would overthrow the liturgy, overthrow the Mass. Pius XII. So I think he lost a lot of grace, which would not have happened had he...
That's great. That's going to be on the exam, right, Father?
Yes, it will. It will be. So if you get that wrong,
1,000 push-ups.
that's going to be 1,000 push-ups. Yes, so yeah, I was part of that too. So that's why I say, my goodness, if we were young priests at the time of Vatican II, how many of us may have just gone along with it without a special grace? We would have gone along, many of us. Well, the Pope wants it. Paul VI is the Pope. He does say traditional things, which he did. He was against abortion. Humanae Vitae was his big, Catholic encyclical condemning birth control. But when you read it, it's not condemning birth control. It's condemning artificial birth control, but not NFP. And in there he says parents need to be responsible with their children, with the number of children, which is total revolution. That's modernist thinking. So, wow. Would we have gone along with the revolution too? It's a frightening thought. So we have to walk, as St. Paul says, work out your salvation with
Fear and trembling.
fear and trembling. Holy Thursday, 1956, Mandatum in Tenebrae, page 155. Michael?
Before looking at the 1956 changes in the Sacred Triduum ceremonies, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday, it would be useful to recall that the Church, from apostolic times to the 20th century, never failed to maintain an attitude of reverence towards liturgical tradition. The reason being precisely that it was the vehicle for protecting the deposit of faith. Here, the principle of lex orandi, lex credendi applies. If the liturgy undergoes a radical alteration, so will the faith of the people. The 19th century Archbishop of Westminster, Cardinal Vaughan.
We saw his tomb in England. His tomb is at Westminster Cathedral.
Yeah.
Remember, it wasn't St. John Southworth. That priest, remember we saw his body, his bones underneath?
Was that in the back?
Yeah, with the silver mask. But up on the epistle side, there was a big tomb.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Cardinal Vaughan. And he was very good. He was very good. Go on, I'm sorry.
Cardinal Vaughan, rejecting the liturgical changes made by Cranmer in the 16th century, explained the importance of the Catholic Church's adherence to its traditional liturgy. Quote, "They must not omit or reform anything in those forms which immemorial tradition has bequeathed to us. For such an immemorial usage, whether or not it has in the course of ages incorporated superfluous accretions, must, in the estimation of those who believe in a divinely guarded, visible church, at least have attained whatever is necessary, so that in adhering rigidly to the rite handed down to us, we can always feel secure, whereas if we omit or change anything, we may perhaps be abandoning just that element which is essential. And this sound method is that which the Catholic Church has always followed."
So notice the italics. What words are in italics?
Adhering rigidly to the rite handed down to us.
Yeah, don't change the rite. Don't change anything. And this is actually heavily backed up by who? In what document? Don't change anything. Don't add to it. Keep the rite of the Tridentine Mass.
Pope Pius V.
Quo primum.
Quo primum Pius V. With even a curse to those who dare to change anything. Next paragraph from Cardinal Vaughan.
That in early times, local churches were permitted to add new prayers and ceremonies is acknowledged, but that they were also permitted to subtract prayers and ceremonies in previous use, and even to remodel the existing rites in the most drastic manner, is a proposition for which we know of no historical foundation, and which appears to us incredible. Hence, Cranmer, in taking this unprecedented course, acted, in our opinion, with the most inconceivable rashness." Unquote.
Okay, footnote here. Cardinal Vaughan, Archbishop of Westminster from 1892 to 1903, came from a recusant Catholic family who had suffered persecution in the 17th century for attending Mass, but who persevered in the faith. He was greatly impressed by the piety of his mother, a convert to Catholicism, who prayed earnestly for religious vocations for her 13 children. 11 of them became priests or nuns. 3 of the priests became bishops, and the remaining 2 children spent some time in a seminary. How's that for a Catholic family? 13 children all tested their vocations. 11 of them found it God's will. This is a great quote, and it's a powerful quote. So what does it say about Bonini and the Liturgical Commission? Did they subtract prayers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they subtract ceremonies that were used previously?
Yes.
Yes.
Did they remodel the existing rites in a very drastic manner?
Yes.
Yes.
And he's saying doing this has no historical foundation and appears to us incredible, incroyable, unbelievable. Hence, Cranmer is taking this unprecedented course. So Cranmer did it, and Paul VI did it. Cranmer and Paul VI, they did equal damage. Well, Paul VI did more damage. Montini. Montini. That's a great quote. This quote is worth hanging up on a frame. Read on, please, Anthony. Page 156.
Fortunately for Cardinal Vaughan, He was spared the harrowing experience of witnessing a 20th century Cranmer, Archbishop Bugnini, wreaking unprecedented destruction on the immemorial tradition of the Roman Rite with the support of reigning pontiffs. In our comparison between the pre-1956 Sacred Triduum ceremonies and the reform of Pius XII, we cannot fail to notice how many traditional elements were subtracted by the liturgical commission from the whole ensemble. These range from small, though not insignificant, details, such as the odd versicle or vestment plucked from the rites like petals from a rose, to whole swaths of ancient texts carved out of the Roman Rite, as if by a scythe in the hands of a demented reaper.
Yeah, you know the
Grim Reaper.
Grim Reaper has the scythe. We have scythes in the barn. Oh, in the tool shed. They have the huge blade, right, to cut the wheat. So did Pius XII subtract rites and ceremonies and prayers?
Yes.
Yeah, he did. He did. He also did the unthinkable. And sedevacantists probably don't like to hear this. But it's good for them to hear it, because you can have a pope that makes stupid mistakes and even favor heresy in his... He can never say heresy. God would strike him dead before saying heresy as ex cathedra. But as a private theologian, they can do a lot of damage, and they do. There was a scandalous quote of Pope Benedict XVI. I won't even repeat it here in class, especially because it's recorded. It was such a scandal that he would even say something like this. I mean, out of any clergy. But it regarded, the whole rainbow thing. But it was a scandalous statement that was like excusing them and favoring them at the same time. So popes, like Caiaphas, they can betray their Lord. All right. All right. We may well continue.
We may well wonder at such a tactic which, at a blow, shattered the Church's millennial custom of prudent conservation. But there was method in the Reformers' madness. Where the quote-unquote cuts were major or minor, they had a rationale behind them. They were all part of a war of attrition being waged against the traditional liturgy, starting with the gutting of the Holy Week ceremonies, which had given the clearest possible expression to the fundamental truths of the Catholic faith.
Yeah, so what's the war of attrition mean? What's war of attrition mean?
Long, grueling.
Gradual reduction in number, size, or strength. So it was a long-term war, we would say. A long-term battle to tear down the Roman Rite. But they were smart. They went for the jugular. The jugular of all the church's liturgy, ceremonies, rubrics was what? What week?
Holy Week.
So they were smart. You go for the jugular and you got them. Go for the jugular, change that, and you can change everything else. And read on.
These included the Holy Trinity, the divinity of Christ, the fall of man, the heinousness of sin and its consequences, the history of our redemption, all central mysteries of Christianity which had featured prominently in the traditional Triduum, but which were either eliminated or minimized in the Reform. As we consider the details of the 1956 reform of the Triduum, let us keep in mind what the subsequent history of the liturgy has made clear, that it was the beginning of the breakup and diminution of the traditional lex orandi, the thin edge of the wedge driven into the Roman Rite by progressive reformers to separate the faithful from their spiritual and liturgical patrimony.
Okay, very powerful sentence. So how do you describe this 56 reform of Holy Week? It was the beginning of the breakup and diminution of the traditional lex orandi, prayer, the thin edge of the wedge driven into the Roman Rite by progressive reformers to separate the faithful from their spiritual and liturgical patrimony. And it's so bad now that you got Catholics who, the majority of Catholics, who if they saw a Tridentine Mass, they would say, what's going on here? What is this? Is this a Catholic Mass? That's how far gone it's gone, right?
Yes.
I hadn't even heard of the Tridentine Mass until I was early 20s.
It's amazing. It's
No,
amazing.
My father said, I think my father said that he didn't know about it until, because he was 36.
Right? So that's quite a successful revolution, isn't it? That you have whole generations that have just not only have never seen the Tridentine Mass, don't even know what it is.
And that's 12 years of, quote unquote Catholic school.
Yeah, that's frightening.
Never even heard of it.
This is frightening. But I think we can say, and if you disagree, please present your reasons. But I think with internet now, more and more people are exposed to the Tridentine Mass and tradition, because it's kind of becoming a new fad.
It's a cool thing to be a Trent
Yeah,
now.
it's now on the charts of, the top 10 charts of popularity. So I really believe now we're on a swing back to the traditional direction.
But with that, you also have to be careful because it's also under a false traditional, view. Because the fact that that's an easy way for the conciliar church to now bring the quote unquote traditional people in. Now,
Yeah.
let's say find the Trinity Mass.
That's
And
right.
they're like, well, no, Leo allows it, and
That's right.
if he starts saying good things about it, it's a perfect way to
Yeah,
grab
it's a
them.
perfect way to lure them back in.
Yeah.
It's also completely changed the mentality, I think, amongst the society faithful. Because now you're cool, you're accepted, everybody likes you, whereas in the past you were ostracized by society.
That is
family.
correct.
So
Because it's like the Michael Matt thing. It makes it's all about the Matts, where they're kind of missing
Right.
the whole point.
Right. So the real enemies are still the true integral Catholics. Right? But you're right. The danger is Vatican II, new Mass approval, new code approval, but we have our Latin Mass. So we're happy. That's the new danger. And I'm afraid most are going in that direction and will stay in that direction. They won't go to the doctrinal level. But that's why we need priests to defend the doctrinal position, the whole thing. That this has to be heard and preached and lived and fought for. Why exclude the Holy Trinity? Gabriel, loud and clear because the fan is going.
It should not go unnoticed that when the new Holy Week rites were published in 1956, one of the antiphons sung during the Mandatum on Holy Thursday was strangely missing.
Okay, what's the mandatum quickly?
When Christ commanded his apostles to
What is it in the liturgy, in the Mass, on Holy
washing.
Thursday?
the washing of the feet.
Yeah, the washing of the feet. Go on.
The liturgical commission had excised it together with its corresponding versicle, Psalm 83, verse 2. What was considered to be so objectionable about it? It had a similar theme and wording to the introit of the Feast of the Holy Trinity.
Okay, footnote, before the 1956 reform, the eighth antiphon of the Mandatum, washing of the feet, began as follows. Benedicta sit Sancta Trinitas, blessed be the Holy Trinity, atque indivisa unitas, and the undivided unity. Et confitebimur ei, we will confess to thee, or we will praise thee, quia fecit nobiscum misericordiam suam, because he has done, the Holy Trinity has done with us according to his mercy, dealt with us according to his mercy. Oh, here's the translation. He has shown us his mercy. These words were identical to the opening sentence of the introit for what feast?
The Feast of the Holy Trinity.
Yes, continue.
As every Mass is offered to the Holy Trinity, this antiphon was a most fitting theme, linking the Mandatum to the ordination of priests at the Last Supper. The Novus Ordo liturgy is now silent about this connection. The Commission was intent on culling as much Trinitarian symbolism as possible in the traditional liturgy, as we can see, for example, in the disappearance of the triple candle used at the Easter Vigil, and, in 1969, prayers to the Holy Trinity in the traditional Mass.
For example, footnote Suscipe Sancta Trinitas, which the priest recites during the offertory of the Mass, and Placea Tibi Sancta Trinitas before the final blessing. They were cut out. What's culling mean?
Like an organized killing.
Yeah, organize, yeah,
Slaughter.
yeah. Reaping out, cutting out, killing off. So why are they attacking the Holy Trinity, for goodness sake? Why? What would be the motive behind this? Remember what Bunini said. The changes have a main motivation is
Ecumenism?
ecumenism. Do Muslims like to hear about the Trinity?
No.
And Protestants have no problem with the Trinity.
Mormons do.
So do Jews, because they only...
Oh yeah, Jews don't like the Trinity. No, that's right. So, there it is. So they have to cut out prayers to the Blessed Trinity. Go on.
The suppression of the Trinitarian antiphon indicates an underlying intention towards future developments in religious liberty, when the mandatum would eventually be open to people of all faiths. It could hardly be expected that Muslims, for example, would consent to have their feet washed to a hymn of praise to the Holy Trinity. Better to exclude the Holy Trinity, it was thought, than non-Christians.
Oh, that makes sense now. Because these popes washed Muslims' feet, Buddhists, Jews, and they can be there for the washing of the feet because they dropped off the hymn to the Holy Trinity. I never saw the connection, but there it is. Go on.
Also significant was the loss of the versicle from Psalm 83, verse 2, which accompanied the antiphon. Quote, "How lovely are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts." End quote. The prophet David, looking into the future and longing for heaven, foresaw something of the supernatural reality of heaven and the church which Christ, by his constant presence in her tabernacles, established on earth for our salvation. It is not difficult to see what was problematic here for the reformers. The traditional mandatum clashed with their idea of some nebulous utopian supra-church, to which all creeds apparently belong, as per Vatican II's false teaching that non-Catholic religions are efficacious for salvation. Nor is it surprising that since the 1956 reforms, the faithful have been continually shaken and rendered uncertain in their faith in the Church as the one ark of salvation, with the result that most Catholics have become either indifferent or hostile to this truth.
Yes, that's a very good point by the author here. The background to the mandatum, to the washing of the feet. Now we will examine the background to a reform which did not arise spontaneously from the devotion of the people, in which nobody except the reformers wanted, and certainly no one requested or needed. Pius XII introduced a ceremony which had no precedent in the history of the Church, which was the washing of the feet of laymen during the Mass of Holy Thursday. So remember, traditionally, the mandatum, washing of the feet, was done on Holy Thursday, but it's done after the ceremonies. It was like done in the afternoon with mainly just the priests, some altar boys, some faithful, but it was always priests or clerics whose feet were washed. So it was a ceremony outside of the Holy Thursday Mass. Page 158 on the top. What is more disturbing about this innovation is that it originated from the most extreme wing of the liturgical movement, as Father Hermann Schmidt, S.J., professor of liturgy at the Gregorianum, Rome, candidly admitted, quote, "It was during the liturgical congress at Lugano in 1953, bring it in 5 minutes, we're going to go 5 more, that we proposed, italics, not without opposition." Interesting. Not without opposition. We propose putting the foot washing after the chanting of the gospel at Mass. It is a new evolution in the history of the mandatum. Emphasis added. Footnote. Yeah, so that's Father Schmidt, 1956-57. So he's admitting it's an evolutionary new rite. The rubrics of the 1956 Ordo state that this can take place in the sanctuary in medio presbyterii, which means?
In the middle of the sanctuary. Or, no,
presbytery is either of the priest or of the presbytery, the rectory.
So could it, oh, I see.
The 56 Ordo states that this can take place in the sanctuary, in medio presbyterii, in the middle of the priests, literally, after the homily. This is in marked contrast to the rubrics of the 1920 Missale Romanum, which stipulate that after the stripping of the altars, the clergy gather together for the foot washing ceremony, conveniunt, they gather together, clerici ad faciendo mandatum, the clerics for washing of the feet. This was to take place in a specially designated area in loco ad id deputato, in a special place, which was usually a chapter house, a priest's residence, like a main part of the rectory, or a different part of the church building where the ceremony could be performed in privacy and without the participation of laymen. The first point to note about Pius XII's innovation is the cacophony of the symbols it presents. In fact, when viewed against the backdrop of liturgical tradition, the whole ceremony abounds in anomaly. This was the first papally sanctioned use of the sanctuary for the purposes of
Active participation
by the
laity.
So it's the first time you have laity, other than altar boys, in the sanctuary. It may have seemed a small concession in 1956, and few people then realized the threat such an innovation posed to the priesthood. But history has shown that it acted as a snowball that gathered an unstoppable momentum until, with the proliferation of lay ministers in the liturgy in the 1970s, it completely submerged the uniqueness of the ordained priesthood. In other words, anybody, what happened in the 70s to prove this point? In 56, they introduced laymen in the sanctuary for the washing of the feet. By 1970, you have...
Eucharistic ministry.
Where? All over where? The nave of the church?
No, in the sanctuary.
Right in the sanctuary, where only the priests used to go, and tolerated altar boys to serve Mass. Tolerated. So now there's women walking all over the altar and all over the sanctuary. Now they open the tabernacle. It's frightening. It's the abomination of desolation. The traditional understanding of the mandatum. So what was it really like, the mandatum? Michael?
As part of the liturgy of Holy Thursday, the mandatum was, according to long-standing tradition, a ritual performed among priests based on Christ's example of washing the feet of the 12 apostles at the Last Supper. It is not to be confused with the so-called mandatum of the poor, an entirely separate ceremony which existed alongside its clerical counterpart. Whereas the latter included laymen, the former was a discreet service performed by clerics, and for clerics away from the public gaze.
Yeah, it wasn't a public thing so much. Now, take note. Where would you get a gathering of priests?
A priory.
At a priory, or, okay, more specifically, why would the priests be gathered together at the cathedral on Holy Thursday?
For
What happens in the morning?
the Mass of the Holy Oils.
Yes. So at the cathedral, all right, you have a whole diocese. Out of every church of the diocese, priests would come on Holy Thursday to be there for the ceremony, because you need 12 priests. as part of the ceremony for the consecration of the holy oils. So you got all these priests present. So it makes sense that on that evening they stick around and they are there for the ceremony of the washing of the feet. And it would be done, with the bishop and the priests, and probably have a big dinner afterwards, with their bishop. So it probably was a very refreshing type of gathering, joyful but also holy. And you get the holy oils, you're there for the ceremony, you get the mandatum, you have a big dinner with the bishop, your local bishop, you can talk to him, you can visit with him. So it was a beautiful thing. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.